Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. We are delighted to join you to announce our 2024 budget. And so want to walk you through some of the priorities you'll hear. I think what you will see today is a budget dedicated to an affordable Denver, a safe Denver, a vibrant Denver, a greener Denver, and a Denver that's going to provide housing for all. And so excited to walk you through a little bit of the priorities that we've laid out across each of these categories. A huge thank you as we get started to the team from finance who has helped be my guides through all of this, and all the departments that have helped us both understand and prioritize the key initiatives you'll see today. So this is a full team effort. You'll see the overview of the budget. I talked through these 5 priorities. We'll talk through affordable Denver, safe Denver, vibrant Denver, greener Denver, and housing for all. The total budget is $1.74 general fund budget for this year. You can go to our next slide. Want to start by talking about affordability across Denver. What we know right now is that last year, more than 50% of Denverites could not afford to live in the city and county of Denver. That means they are right now paying more than 30% of what they make in their income towards rent. We know if you're paying more than 30% of what you make to rent, it means you can't pay the rest of the bills you got sitting on your kitchen counter. And so one of our top priorities is helping make sure that this city is affordable for everybody who works in this city, who serves the city, and wants to continue to live in this city. That's why one of our top areas of focus will be on building, preserving, acquiring permanently affordable housing units. Our goal will be to try to acquire 3,000 permanently affordable units next year. We have up to $100 million set aside to do that. That allows teachers, nurses, retail workers across the city to make sure they can get access to housing where they do not pay more than 30% of their income to rent. We know in addition to acquiring those units, we also have to expedite the process by which we approve and permit in this city to make sure that we can get affordable units up more quickly, and then we can get all units permitted and through the system more efficiently. So we're doing 2 things here. First is we will launch the process to make sure we can deliver a timeline to do 90-day permit approval for our affordable housing projects, and to work on improving our permitting process across all applicants. But that will particularly help us in our eligibility for Proposition 123 state dollars, which we're committed to. In addition, we'll also add more members to our AHART, which is our Affordable Housing Review Team, which will help accelerate the timeline from permit receipt to actually occupancy. So we want to both increase the rate at which we permit, increase the rate at which people actually get through those permits and into units. And so you will see both of these as top priorities around affordability. I want to talk next about a safe Denver. We know right now, and the residents of Denver have been feeling this. They've been talking to us about it. 2022 represented a historic high in crime across the city. It's some of the highest rates of crime we've seen in almost 20 years, both from violent crime, from property crimes, from homicide, and we plan to turn that around. And so we are excited today to announce some incredibly important investments in this space. The first is we are announcing today that we will begin by rebuilding Denver's police force. We know this has been a major crisis. We don't have enough officers to do the work, respond to the calls that residents have. We will this year commit to 3 cadet academies that will help us add 167 new officers back to our police force. That is also the largest number of new officers we brought on in nearly 20 years in the city, which we think will both help make sure we have the resources we need and help make sure we're deploying officers to the places where they can be their highest and best use. To that end, we're also focused on expanding our non-criminal co-responder programs. What we want is to have the right first responder responding to the right incident at the right time. And so that also means for us expanding our co-responder programs like STAR. We'll take up to 16 teams and up to 8 vans, which we think will be significant expansion. We'll move towards 24-hour-a-day service starting in 2025. And we will also be able to, I think, as I mentioned, fund the co-responder program as well. We're also excited to double the size of our Wellness Winnie program. We're adding a second Wellness Winnie van, which, as people may know, is a mobile mental health and physical health delivery vehicle that we have that can go to folks that are on site, whether they're unhoused, whether they need support where they're living. This mobile capacity to respond to what might be mental health or physical health needs both gets people the services they need and preserves the use and time of our officers to respond to those incidents that involve our most serious risks. We're also expanding our commitment to treatment alternatives. That means making available both treatment and work options earlier in the process. For those either who are incarcerated, that means getting them connected to treatment earlier and getting them back into the community earlier. We know right now without high-quality community corrections beds, folks stay in prison or in jail longer than they need to. Community corrections allows them to get back into the community, back to work, back connected to family. Excited to be partnering both with nonprofits and the city together, who will be opening 90 beds that we'll be able to use to get folks out of corrections back into the community to get to work. Also excited to expand and support our Behavioral Health Solutions Center, which provides critical services for folks who may be in different versions of mental health crisis so that they can get treatment and services and support and inpatient support without needing to get involved into correctional services in the first place. So excited about this as a comprehensive approach to how we provide a safer Denver. Next slide. We also know we want to build a vibrant Denver, and we know that a vibrant city starts with a vibrant downtown. And that is why this budget makes a strong $58 million commitment to invest in downtown and making it a place where Denverites will love to live, to work, and to play. So let me say a few things about each of those. We know right now here we are facing an uphill climb. Right now, Denver has one of the highest commercial vacancy rates of any city in America at around 27%. That also is a trend we need to turn around. That means making downtown Denver a great place to work. For us, that means starting by stabilizing support for downtown businesses. It means attracting new businesses to a revitalized downtown, and it means completing our historic effort on the revitalization of the convention center, which will come online in 2024. In terms of making downtown an attractive place to live, we want to convert downtown Denver from being a centralized business district to being a centralized neighborhood district, a place people like to live and spend all of their time working and playing and living together. We will start our first effort to convert commercial office space into residential units this year and work on a path to accelerate additional conversion of commercial spaces in the time to come. We will also, in terms of making Denver a great place to play downtown, we will complete the 16th Street Mall. We'll invest in that investment in 2024 so that will be online and completed in 2025. We'll reactivate Upper Downtown with some new pedestrian spaces that allow for more places for people to gather and enjoy Upper Downtown in the same way we have spaces like the outdoor market at Larimer right now in the Lower Downtown area. And we'll make it easier to get downtown to play by launching our efforts on bus rapid transit on Colfax that will include a $14 million investment from the city that will leverage $136 million of federal support. So all of those combined, we think, to helping get a downtown Denver where everyone wants to live, work, and play. And we know that the recovery of downtown starts in downtown Denver, but it doesn't end there. We know actually for us to have a thriving economy, we need to have a vibrant economy in all of our neighborhoods. That's why we are focusing also on supporting legacy businesses in all parts of the city. Those are small and existing businesses who may have struggled through the pandemic or trying to get their feet back under them. We want to provide key support for those neighborhood efforts, as well as streamlining the process for small business owners to both launch and grow small businesses. Next one is I want to talk to you a little about a greener Denver. We know right now that 45% of our carbon emissions come from vehicles, and we need to take aggressive steps to reduce that. So what you'll see here is an aggressive commitment by the city to move towards greening vehicles all across the city. That's two parts. First, we'll make a significant investment into building out charging infrastructure so that all Denverites can get easier access to charge electric vehicles, inspire them to convert to electric vehicles, and allow us to build out the infrastructure we will need to convert more of our city fleet to be electric vehicles. You will see some key investments from us to both expand our investments in our own $2 million of city vehicles. We'll also partner with our Green Fleet Task Force to identify the pipeline of other vehicles that we can make electric that may be harder to identify right now. Supply chains for vehicles that meet our service needs, like snowplows, like trash trucks, like more of the vehicles that are more difficult to find in the electric space. We want this to be an infrastructure building both on charging infrastructure and on supply chains and vehicle classes we can use to help convert our fleet, make it easier for all Denverites to be able to access and use electric vehicles across the city. We're also expanding mobility options. So you'll see here a $15 million investment in expanding bike lanes, safe routes to school, pedestrian crossings, implementation of the Denver Moves plan, as well as expanding and continuing our wildly popular e-bike program and our micro-transit programs, which are connectors that we have in communities like Montbello and Globeville area, Swansea, which helps people get around the neighborhood and places that don't have as well-traveled of public transit lines. We will also continue to both focus on public transit for our own employees by continuing our offering of eco-passes to all city employees to get to and from work in downtown. And we'll do that to open a partnership with other businesses around the city to try to encourage them and give them opportunities to also make those eco-passes available to their employees, so we can both make commuting to downtown climate friendly, make it traffic friendly, and make it a helpful tool in making sure that we revive the activation of downtown Denver. So that's part of our Greener Denver strategy. Finally, we will remain committed to our plan to get access to housing for all. And so that means we talked this week about the 2023 budget. We know that the needs around folks that are unhoused will not end at the end of 2023. We're preparing in 2024 to commit to a plan to house another 1,000 individuals. And we've laid out a $39 million budget to prepare to onboard those people into housing and services so that we can endeavor to fill that entire gap of the 1,500 people that we know were in the point in time count as of last January. But in addition to helping support folks that are homeless, we want to critically make sure we invest upstream in preventing people from becoming homeless in the first place. We know right now it costs the city and the taxpayers far less to keep someone in a house than it does to try to get them services once they have lost that house. So we'll do two things. We'll make almost a 300% expansion of the city's investment into TRUA, which is a rental and utility assistance program, so the people that are in their homes and are at risk of losing it can stay in those homes. We'll also invest in eviction defense protection so that people who are at risk of getting evicted, we can help them negotiate terms with landlords to stay in their homes and make sure they can keep themselves housed and anticipate them not having to end up being homeless and requiring the services or support the city is allocating right now to get people back up into housing. So for us, this is an overall view of a Denver that we believe we can build together. We think that the most significant mistake we can make when we look at hard problems is believing that those hard problems are unsolvable. We actually know these problems are solvable, and we believe we have the team and the resources and the city employees that can commit ourselves to solving them. What this lays out is our first version of a strategy to deliver that dream of Denver that is a city that is vibrant, that is affordable, that is safe, and that provides housing for everyone. We think we can do that with the partnership of the city and the partnership of the taxpayers, and we are delighted to launch this proposal for 2024. So with that, I will stop, and I will give it over to Margaret Dannhauser, who will walk you through a little bit of the 2024 budget outlook. I'm happy to come back and answer some questions after that when Margaret's ready. Your show, Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor. Margaret Dannhauser, Chief Financial Officer, and want to echo the Mayor's thanks for the teams that have made this day possible. It's been a long road. We started this process in April, so shout out to the budget team, to the CPP team, to our communications team and admin team, and all of the finance equivalents within our partner agencies. Thank you very much. 2024 general fund revenue growth is projected to be 4% in 2024, and the general fund is our main operating fund and also 33% of our overall budget. You can see by the chart that we had robust post-pandemic recovery revenues coming out of a very low level. And we're seeing things moderate a little bit, as would be expected, as we have more moderate year-over-year growth. While 2024 is projected to continue to grow, it will be at that more normal rate of growth. In 2024, our general fund revenue is projected to be just over $1.7 billion, and this is a natural growth rate that we expect to be able to sustain going forward. Some drivers for general fund revenue continue to be taxes, namely sales and use tax, as well as our property tax. Some positive factors that are continuing for our outlook for 2024 include a stable unemployment rate, as well as job market locally. We're seeing continued lessening in supply chain constraints that were caused during the pandemic. Also, the increase in Federal Reserve hikes are starting to have an impact to bring inflation rates down a little bit, but we're also seeing, as a result, some growth in real wages, which help our local consumers. As in 2023, higher inflation and interest rates are likely to put some limits on our growth, as it just costs more to do things. And we're feeling it as a city, just as our residents are too. It's harder to refinance your mortgage, it's harder to borrow, and spending activity can be impacted as a result. You can see the charts on the slide with those inflation rates as well as interest rates here. The July Denver MSA, that's Metropolitan Statistical Area, growth rate was 4.7%. That was the headline growth rate. If you take out food and energy, 5.8%, so still very high. We saw some contributors that housing is still a contributor to that overall inflation, but the biggest factor is fuel and utilities. Conversely, higher interest rates that we've seen have also benefited the city. We have a $7 billion investment portfolio that's invested in primarily fixed income, and we've been the beneficiary of higher interest rates that we've seen our investment income increase almost fourfold from where we were earning a year ago. So diving into sales and property tax revenue a little bit more, sales use is approximately 57% of our revenues, while property taxes are only about 11% for Denver. Sales and use tax is projected to grow 4.1% in 2024, which is a lower annual increase that we've seen coming out of the pandemic, but still a very healthy rate. Property tax at 11% of our overall revenues is expected to grow just over 7% in 2024. And it's worth a reminder that property taxes in Denver, only a third, just less than a third, of property taxes actually come to the city and county of Denver. Denver Public Schools makes up about 2/3 of property taxes, whereas the urban drainage is about 1%. So the general fund budget for 2024 is projected to be $1.74 billion. This is a 3.7% increase in expenditures over the revised 2023 budget. Expenditure drivers include personnel costs. That's about 70% of our overall budget. And just like many businesses across our city, the city is experiencing wage inflation as well as minimum wage increases that will come on January 1st. We also are paying more for the goods and services that the city has to buy. And we have some new investments for 2024 that reflect Mayor Johnston's priorities. I think it's important to complete the picture of the city's budget. We've talked a lot about the general fund today, but we have several voter-approved and other special revenue funds to talk about. These funds are becoming more and more an important part of how we fund our initiatives. So there's a list here that includes both sales tax measures that were approved by voters as well as some property tax measures. These are budgeted in the year that they're earned, but they, in comparison to the general fund, whatever is not spent is able to carry over to the next year. So with projected revenue growth rates in these special revenue funds between 3% and 16%, we have an average of approximately 6.2% growth in 2024 across all those funds. And the Denver Library Fund that was approved by voters in 2022 represents the largest increase in growth for 2024. Moving on to 2024 projected capital improvement funding, this slide shows a pie chart of all the sources and where we expect to spend them in 2024. Our total capital budget for 2024 is over $1 billion, $521 million, which includes our bond funding approved by voters and other initiatives. The capital budget includes over $100 million for mobility projects. The mayor talked about some of those earlier. Also $57 million for parks, trails, and open space, which includes $37 million funded by the voter-authorized Parks Legacy Fund. The capital budget will also fund basic water quality basins, new playgrounds, outdoor rec buildings, trails and walks and parks around the city. The American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA, this is a federal program. The city was awarded $308 million in 2021. It came to us in 2 equal halves in 2021 and 2022. Most of our ARPA funding has been used for recovery programs. Of the $308 million that was awarded to the city, we have about $76 million that is left, and we have to have that all under contract by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. Many of the programs with funds remaining include programs that started late last year because they were part of the 2023 budget process, and they include after-school and summer programs for kids and families, mobile physical and mental health programs, and a continuation of our very successful Digital Navigator program. And then we wouldn't be the Department of Finance without talking about reserves. Heading into 2024, we continue to maintain strong reserves. We've put about 15% away or held in reserves for emergency economic challenges. This is a vital financial safeguard that we actually, in recent memory, had to draw upon during the pandemic. In addition to those reserves, we have the annual general fund contingency, which for 2024 is budgeted at just over $34 million, and this will help us address any unbudgeted needs that might crop up next year. And finally, CIP, our capital improvement funds, operate similarly. They contain a little bit of contingency to the tune of about $6.4 million to also address some things that come up within the year. That's the extent of my presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor.
I think we are available to take any questions if you have them. We also have department leaders who are here for follow-up afterwards if people have specific questions, but if there are any general questions for us, happy to take a couple right now. Yes. You bet. Obviously, our entire host budget will be dedicated to the whole continuum of both homelessness and housing. As I mentioned, that's both preventing people from entering homelessness in the first place. That's our focus on rental and utility assistance. TRUA, that's about a $12 million fund. All the services to folks that are currently experiencing homelessness, which is getting them off of the streets and into housing. That's the $39 million we laid out for next year, which is to house the next 1,000 individuals we believe. We know the work will not be done when this first effort is complete. And so that's focused on, our point in time count is around 1,500 right now. And yet we know that there is many new instances of people coming into homelessness even for the first time. And so we expect that need to be higher than just the 1,500. So this puts us on a path to house 2,000 between 2023 and 2024 and provide ongoing support and services and get those people up and out into permanent housing. So that's what you'll see in the 23 and 24 budget combined. Yes, Joe. We are seeing some of the beginnings of the federal cliffs that people have been warning about, which is there was a great opportunity in the last several years for historic investments in housing because of those ARPA funds. We're really excited to be maintaining that commitment even despite a significant drop in federal dollars. So we've backfilled with a deeper investment of city dollars. Stephanie, I don't know if you or Margaret want to talk about sources on those, but you're right, Joe, in that despite a drop of federal funds, we've worked to maintain that commitment even though those cliffs will be coming.
Hi everyone, Stephanie Carriatis-Adams. I'm the city's budget management director. And Joe, you'll see in the budget book that we actually identified all the sources of funds. We have talked a lot about how important HOST is, and so it has a really diverse set of funding sources. So the general fund contributes to it. We developed an affordable housing fund, and of course the homeless resolution fund, which voters supported moving forward. And of course, there are things like CDBG and HOME. So the federal government also contributes. So all the sources of funds are actually listed in the budget book, but essentially some of the same sources, ARPA as well, is in there, and I think it's a little over 70 as well for even for 2024.
Yes, ma'am. Great question. So two parts of it. One is one of the things we find is one of the best ways to keep public transit safe is to activate public transit. The more people we have on it, the safer people often feel. It is the most risky when it is the least well-traveled. And so this is a very deliberate attempt by us doing things like expanding the Eco Pass to all of our 13,000 employees, which gives them free access to public transit to come to and from work. We want to be able to encourage more and more businesses to do the same, which is to encourage people to use and activate public transit, buses and light rails, so they are more occupied. Obviously, RTD has their own security that we do not directly patrol those public transit lines. We will be in conversation with them about what the intersection of our security needs are. How do we make sure they're keeping public transit safe while we're keeping the streets of the city safe? Because we know that's a big deterrent for folks to ride public transit if they don't feel safe. So we think that's the first threshold we have to meet, is making sure those rides are safe. We think the more people we put on them, the more active those lines are, the safer they become. Yes?
How is the 2024 budget anticipating future migrant arrivals and any of the unexpected 2023 costs affected 2024 budget?
A great question. We have allocated a budget for 2024 on our migrant population, where we've right now set aside $20 million as our investment for 2024. As I think you know, we've started an RFP process we're going to be doing for services to our migrants and our newcomers, and we've restructured that. We've gone away from the one large sole source contract that was proposed earlier, and we've gone towards a set of smaller contracts that allow more local nonprofit and community organizations to participate in those supports. We think those are going to be closer to the ground, more connected to the communities, probably more efficient and more effective in those services. So we never know exactly what the inflow is going to be month by month, but we've started with that commitment, and we know we'll adjust as we see what happens over the next 3 to 6 months. Yes.
This is your first budget as mayor, and I'm curious to see what maybe came out of some surprises to you or some notable aspects of the budget that maybe you agree with.
Yes, it definitely was my first rodeo. I had a lot to learn very quickly. I think for us, one of the things I learned was how many really wonderful efforts the city has going in various places that people may not know about, places where we're piloting or exploring ideas that we think can really scale to success. And this was a chance for us to look at how we coordinate and combine some of those efforts and put them against some of our toughest problems. And so I think we have a lot of places across the city where we're focused on safety. How do we concentrate those in our highest yield investments around both making sure we can restaff the officers we need, we can focus on alternatives and interventions to people that need someone other than a law enforcement officer, and we can get folks out of corrections faster and into community and into services faster. Same was true with our agenda on climate. You will see innovative ideas in all the different departments about ways that we can help green the city. We're trying to help coordinate those efforts and align them and call the citizens to be a part of what we think is a bigger vision to deliver a Denver that's going to be vibrant and affordable and safe. Thank you all so much for being here. I felt like my first school picture day, but I feel like I survived. And so thanks for your time. Thanks so much to the team and all the folks in finance and the budget office who did all the great work. We're so grateful for all that you've done.